through because I pressed the wrong button. Are we okay? That was interesting. Hello, folks. I hope you're still there. I pressed completely the wrong buttons and I disappeared. So that was not the way to start a live. Hello, Martin. Good to see you. And Jenny, good to see you. I hope that Jenny and Sally are still there. There are 8 of you present at the moment. If you can just let me know, Martin, if you can hear me all right. And if Jenny and Sally, if you're there, please say hello again, because I think I may have cut you off completely. So let's just get this going and pay no more attention to the false start. Nancy, hello. Tom, hello. Yep, yes, that is indeed 9. That's fantastic. So I don't know whether I've lost Jenny and Sally, but okay, hopefully they'll find us again. Oh, good. Hello. Yes, good. Still there. Okay. That was not a way to start a live. Good. How are you lot? How are you all? Okay. I've put the link to the video that I uploaded on Saturday up there. The one about gambling. That has, I guess, inevitably proved quite popular. And I think partly because as I realized that it does actually look like clickbait. Hello, Nick. Good to see you. Good. I thought you might pop in. That's great. Tess, hello. And Terry, gosh, hello. What time is it over there in the States, in your part of the world? So yes, the thumbnail for the gambling video does look a little bit like clickbait, but I was always thinking of it as dowsing dash gambling ... and other stuff, whereas actually it looks like dowsing gambling, so therefore obviously it gets a lot of interest. It wasn't actually intentional. Hello, Denise, nice to see you. Gigi, yeah, good to see you. Melinda, hello, nice to see you. So yeah, so we're going to refer back to that a little bit. I think it's quite nice just to refer back to these videos that come up and they sort of cause some interesting comments. So we'll go through some of those questions, and we're also going to look a little bit at, I guess it's the concept of duality or non-duality, which let's call it good and evil, that sort of stuff. We'll go through that. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, we'll get some input as well from my guide on that sort of thing. We'll see how we go. It's always, I say it's always, I'm always unsure, but I guess he'll show up if he needs to show up, and that's the main thing. For those of you that are watching on playback, there will hopefully be an edited version of this, because this is, as the regulars know, the meandering chit chat. This is the live where we go all over the place, but there should be edited highlights fairly soon, the next few days, popping up in the playlist that is for those edited versions. Hello, Louise, good to see you. So if that's what you'd like, the succinct version, then pop across to that playlist and find out more about what we talk about. So here we are on our meandering chit chat, and I think we'll come on to the non-duality aspect of existence and reality and all that shortly, but and I guess we're going to cover some of the same old points that we quite often touch upon. Just a little reminder that these days, I guess we're doing about 2, maybe 3 lives a month. They tend to be consecutive in the middle of the month. So don't expect to see us here on the first of a month, the first week of a month on a Monday, or at the last week of a month on a Monday. But otherwise, we're here in between. So some of the more recent videos that I've uploaded to the channel have been a bit more diverse, I guess. I think some of you come to the channel purely for the dowsing. Hello, Carol, good to see you. Purely for the dowsing and for the information about that, and how can I, improve that dowsing. And I guess you inevitably, maybe, think about the deeper connection to the spiritual self. But the last 2 videos, or the ones that I feel are slightly different, is the interview with my brother about mental health. And then I did an interview with Ian Jameson, which was more of a scientific view and spirituality. So it's a scientific view of reality and where science is. And really, I suppose what I just wanted to touch on was that in all of this stuff that we're covering on the channel, what we're really looking at is what is our experience of reality. What does it mean to be a human being? But I can't put that kind of concept, I can't even explain it very well, but that kind of concept doesn't work with the algorithm of YouTube. I can put things like non-duality, but then people expect a certain very deep analysis of life, the universe, and everything. And I think that there are some very, very good channels out there about non-duality and very good channels about spirituality. And Rupert Spira is one that springs to mind, a very powerful set of information that he's got, and he really puts across messages really well. And they're very complex messages sometimes, really trying to get to the root of what are we all about. Whereas here, we're a little bit less intense, I guess, but I think still equally relevant. As you know, there's 21 of you now online, and I think we're all quite interested in what's it all mean, and what can we do to change stuff. Thanks, Jenny. I think obviously what I'm doing is following I'm exploring what I'm interested in, and exploring my path. And even some of you that are on the mentoring, the house healing mentoring sessions, the path that you're on and the journey that you're on is one that we're condensing into 10 months. And it's, one that I started in, what do we say? 1998, I moved into the house. So we're condensing a lot of information into 10 months, and we can't possibly hope to come to conclusions in 10 months. And any of the conclusions that I come to are not necessarily going to be conclusions that you come to. But in all of this work, when so many of us are trying to actually explore ways of finding more peace, balance, and harmony into our lives, because what we're looking for, and what any information exchange like this does, is really try to fulfill what you're looking for. So you're looking for something. What I'm talking about is trying to get more peace, balance, and harmony into your lives, and that's what you're seeking. And part of that peace, balance, and harmony comes from those amazing moments of being plugged into the universe and sitting in meditation and having those incredible spiritual, I won't put that in inverted commas, I was going to say spiritual, but it's not, it's a spiritual experience. And that is the path of enlightenment, right? I guess, what is enlightenment? I don't know. I don't know what the dictionary definition of enlightenment actually is, but that's what we consider to be enlightenment. And again, this sort of follows on from what we were talking about last week a little bit too. And there's no doubt that being in the flow and being in those moments gives us the connection and the power. And often that power that we connect to is the power of insight. It allows information to come to us, and we have those aha moments. And it's those aha moments where veils are lifted and we see, again, from a different perspective, quite often a non-duality perspective, what life is about. And then sometimes we frustratingly lose those moments very quickly, but sometimes we can hang on to them. But it's in those moments when actually we are achieving what we are seeking. But it doesn't matter how often or how well we connect, because we are always connected to our spiritual selves, to the management. We are always connected. It's just clearly, this is obvious stuff, isn't it? Clearly, we don't feel the connection. And this is where we repeat much of what we talk about all the time. There is the difference between the feeling of being in the flow and of being accepted by the management, warts and all, for all our faults and for all our darker aspects, the acceptance of the human being, there are those moments where we feel it and we know we're doing what we consider from our human perspective to be the right thing. We are in the right place at the right time and everything is as it should be. All of these sayings that come out as kind of like trite spiritual platitudes, but we feel it, so we know it's the truth. And then we come out of that meditation, all those moments of joy, and we're back in life. And here it is hitting us with all its crap, and we don't feel in the least bit connected. And so we don't even think about what we think about in those moments, because we forget that actually, just because we can't feel them, the management are right there, because they are right here. Each one of us is a part with no separation. So that's where the non-duality aspect comes in. And we say, don't we, Tom, hi. I should think he would be too. The aspects, we cannot ever see life without the human perspective. And so when we even are lucky enough to access the depth of love that can be felt and perceived, and all of the glory, I'll use those terms which are getting quite kind of like echoing my C of E upbringing as a child, the glory of those moments. We can't lose their power. I've lost my train of thought, but it's taking me back to my days as a youngster in church. But the power doesn't leave us. And the point is that the mechanism of creation doesn't ever separate from us. So I do a lot of work with people that want to change the way they connect to spirit and to the universe, to the creator, to the ultimate creator. And we talk about our connection and we, as though it is something separate from us. Whereas really, we are living the connection. We are the living connection. In the same way as people sometimes say to me, oh, I've been told that human beings are a portal. Is this true? Well, yes, because we are the doorway, the constant access and interchange point between the spiritual energies and the non-spiritual energies. So we are at the crossing point, we are the portal. We allow through our flow or not, the light or the dark. And commonly we consider the darker aspects of existence, of reality, of what we perceive to be the case of the darker aspects of truth, if you want to call it that, as being the human aspects, the darkness that is there within every single person. And traditionally we say that the light comes from God, the universe, source. But we are constantly connected and therefore we are a constant balance. It is simply our positioning within that balance that allows either the darkness or the light to come through and to be brought through the portal into the awareness of others that are actually the same. We are one in those moments. We are one all the time, but we don't experience the oneness unless we're in that flow, in that point of balance and harmony, which is peace. Those are the moments. But it is not for us to strive for those moments. Those moments are given as we flow through the entire 80 years plus. Our heartache that we can experience as we grow up, as we develop, as we change, as we follow our path, is not necessarily something to be avoided. it gives us, because we're based on the linear time frame, it gives us a point of reference, it gives us a point of change. We can see that this moment is not that moment. That moment is different to this moment. Otherwise, we would simply be in the point of peace and harmony and not human. So we are allowed those points of access, because those points of access are points that we have chosen to be allowed before we've even incarnated into this time frame, as we follow the path to varying degrees of predestined moments. And as we hit those points of peace, those points of balance, then we can either learn, or we can use that energy and that moment to change both ourselves and somebody else, something else, something else. Something that seems to be external to us, when it in fact is not. We are simply changing ourselves. But the feeling of the interaction between two objects is one that causes friction, that we've touched on before. And therefore, this is why friction is important, because when we look at it from the human perspective, from this dual existence perspective, you need friction to make things work. If there was no friction, we couldn't move across the ground. And friction sometimes comes in the form of stress, or it can come in forms of the much darker energies that need to be overcome and fought. But sometimes fighting is found in actually passive action, where it is just acceptance. And it's always our seeming choice to allow either an action to occur or to allow a passivity. It doesn't matter. Yeah. These moments can seem like affectations when somebody is channeling, and the words sometimes can seem trite or overused. Overworked, perhaps. Bless you, Tammy. That's all right, David. I'm hoping that's not a euphemism. Good man. I need to get out and do some gardening. It'd be nice, David, if you can catch the earlier part on replay, just the first 20 minutes. Sally, good to see you. That would be nice for you to catch the first 20 minutes as well, Sally, actually. Next time we talk. In fact, I want to relate to that, refer to that. I want to send you another email, and I'll refer to that in that email. Good to see you, though. Good to see you both. Good to see you all. Okay, let's break this. Let's go to the let's refer back to the video, the gambling video. I think, okay, so I just want to put one perspective on what we've just discussed. Okay. Yeah, it was it was a pause. Well, we had Merlin present. Hi Susie, good to see you. It's nice. Okay, that's great. There's something lurking there that I want to say about what was said in the first 20 minutes, but I'm not sure what it is. So we'll circle round and see where we go. Let me just take a quick tea. Oh, drilling. Yes, I understand what you mean, Sally. Good. Yeah. So now, obviously, what I didn't say earlier on was if you've got any questions at all in any of this, chuck them in there and we'll see what we do. Don't wait for a convenient pause like we had then. Just dive in anytime and we'll see what happens. So I want to just refer back to that gambling video, okay? Because gambling, as I pointed out in the video, if any of you haven't seen it, do pop across. The link is right at the top of the chat, of this line of chat. Do pop across and watch that after we finished here. What I wanted to refer to was that every person that learns dowsing, at some point, the likelihood is they're going to think, oh, maybe I'll douse the lottery. I'll give that a go. Or in my case, it was, lottery. I tried the lottery and, and tried dowsing the horses. And that's what the video is about, is really about the fact that can you use dowsing, this sacred connection to spirit and to source energy? Can we, as human beings, use it for personal subjective gain? And the answer is, it entirely depends on the person, on the individual, on the circumstance of the individual. The management will allow people to connect to this energy. And that's witnessed by, I'm going to go through a couple of these comments because it's witnessed by, there's I think it's a fella, it might have been a lady, but I think it's a fella, natural technologist. As multidimensional beings, they say, have unlimited potential. Nothing is impossible for those ready. I've doused slot machines and won $300. For me, nothing like that is impossible. And that demonstrates where that person is in their relationship to money. Now, what I wanted to do in that video was to indirectly say, well, look, dowsing and this connection to spirit is all about this attitude to our state of being. You know, we grow up with a load of emotional baggage, and that emotional baggage, as we've said every week, is what determines how we experience life. These give us our logical biases and all of that stuff that psychologists talk about. And so it reflects the way that we as a human being sees the world. And natural technologist here clearly doesn't have any baggage, or doesn't have much baggage, surrounding money. When I was dowsing the horses, again, as I say in the video, I'm not proud of the fact that I did this, but this was just part of that development and part of the phase I was going through. Yeah, I actually lost a heck of a lot of money. And on one particular day, I lost so much money that fortunately is what made me stop. And it also showed me what my relationship to money was. And it showed me also bizarrely in this quite dark energy of almost addiction, the way that spirit still will function in that dark energy, which is what reflects the balance of everything. And I think that's probably what I was trying to reflect on that first 20 minutes from Merlin, is that everything being this yin-yang mixture, that is part of it. And so they will function through that. The management will function through that, and they will use one's darkness to enable the growth of the individual. We've said some time ago, or a few sessions ago, maybe it was last month, that the really tough times that we go through, which are particularly in our young days, when, you know, you can feel like topping yourself because they're so bad. When you can heal and get over them, then actually you can see when you get to that certain stage that there is so much power within that tragedy or within that trauma that can be used for so much good in the, you know, the later years, or in the years from which you've healed, moved on from, because that's where all your experience and your baggage, it becomes a gift. It just flourishes, and you know, it's extraordinarily clever, I think. Okay. So Susie B, have a look at the playlist, which is titled Geopathic Stress. Have a look at that, and then because it's a little bit more complicated than I want to go into right now to actually sort of instruct you in it, but that's fine. I'm really pleased that you've done that. Does that detrimental energy line go through your bedroom? Do you sleep in that detrimental energy line? That's the only thing I would ask you. And if you do, are you able to just move the bed so that you're not sleeping with that line going through the head area? Okay, that's the only thing I would say. But take your time and have a look at the Geopathic Stress playlist, and you'll get some basic instruction from there. It will raise questions for you. Sally, Susie, I'm not sure whether have you emailed me before, but anyway, if you haven't and you've got specific questions about it while doing that, drop me an email via my website. Use the contact form, okay? I'm not sure, I can't remember whether you have or not. And sometimes obviously your names on here are different to what you use in the emails. Okay, so cool. So yeah, we're talking there about our injuries and our trauma becoming the gift, the great gift. And this is particularly true of healers. And it's the whole thing, there's a whole energy around the wounded healer, so that the person that has been wounded by XYZ actually becomes the healer and is brilliant at helping others through XYZ because they've done it and been there, okay? So the wounded healer is a classic sort of archetypal character. Those of you that are on the house healing course and are wounded healers, good. Those of you that are generally wounded, then I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I mean, bless you, you're all regulars. You know that I'm not taking the mickey. I am truly sorry for the trauma that you will have experienced, but equally, if you can start to look at that trauma and see the light in the darkness, right? Now, Tammy, especially for you, yeah, right. Yeah, no, exactly. See, this is it. When you're in it, you cannot see it. I think, Tammy, and I hope you don't mind me saying, and do correct me if I'm wrong, if it wasn't you, but I think, Tammy, that you were saying recently on a chat that you've been through a tough time recently and were very, very low. Now, to me, especially at this time through the COVID-19 lockdown, this has been a massive time of healing. So there's so many people that are moving forward really strongly in big leaps. Okay. And Tammy, what I would say is maybe just look at how you feel about what you've been through in your life and how that sits with you in a good way. Okay. Because when we look at good and bad, good and evil is such a strong word, isn't it? Light and dark. When we look at light and dark in the context of reality and duality, then the dark is all about self and about somebody, the human form, going into a situation or encountering a situation and saying, what can I get out of this? How can I make this work for me? There is no iota of altruism, of respect for any other being, which obviously is at that level is perceived as being completely separate. Whereas if we want to look at the same circumstance and go from the altruistic point of view, then it is, how can I help you? How can I help somebody else? And therefore, that's the difference in the vibration. We use that word vibration, and that's the dark is all about me as an individual separate entity. The light is all about the love, sharing the love. I know it's a corny way of putting it, but you know what I mean. Let me just refer back to Susie B. Okay, good. Well, that's good. Okay. Yeah. Have a look at the video. That's fine. I just didn't want you to be kind of sleeping in the energy for longer than you needed to. So that's fine. If it's in a separate part of the house, that's great. You will probably find enough. Also, I'll plug my friend's book, Heal Your Home by Adrian Ingleton Weber. Heal Your Home by Adrian Ingleton Weber. You can get it from USA Amazon or UK Amazon. That will give you some ammo to go on, and if you get really excited by it, then let me know and you can join a house healing course, which some of you are on. Anyway, so the point being that no matter how much dark and trauma we have individually been through, and most people that are on a spiritual path have been through some form of dark trauma. It varies, the extent of it varies massively, but there's a level that it becomes, this experience of growing up becomes trauma, and therefore individual human beings are traumatized. But all of that trauma can be used in a healing way forward. Okay. I've said enough on that, haven't I? Okay. Questions. Pop the questions in there. Pop the questions in there. Tom, have you got a question, or are you dozing off there? In a nice way, I mean. I'm not having a go. While we wait for your questions, there was another comment about the gambling video, right? And this guy, Tom Turpin, he said, obviously the deservability, karma, of the dowser is a factor. The management wouldn't allow this if you didn't deserve it. Well, it's more about, well, okay, right. Let me just finish this and I'll come to Jenny's question. The management wouldn't allow this if you didn't deserve it. Well, though, that expression is all human-based thinking. That is all separate thinking. It's about the experience that you have, not about whether the management allows or not. Because if we're talking about it in terms of the management allowing, and I know I said earlier on that we can have these moments where we feel completely accepted and comforted and part of the management. But when we start to think about dowsing like this as being the management allowing, it becomes a little bit judgmental. It becomes a little bit like it's sitting in judgment on us, on our lives, and that's not the case. They do not judge. What they do is they allow everything to occur for our best interests, for the interests that we are pursuing, for the life that we are leading. Whether or not it's obvious at that point in time, which is why we can have such darkness that then can become useful and be a light-giving aspect. Okay, hello Dixie, little one up then, eh? Again. It's good. So Jenny, how do we know it's not from ego? Robin, hello. How do we know all of this stuff is not from ego? Right. Okay. So do you know what? I would sidestep. For you, Jenny, I would sidestep the whole issue of ego. Now, I know it's a whole can of worms, and some of you are going to be going, what do you mean? Well, what we've talked about so far is we've talked about looking at life with the human perspective, and that basically is, much of that is from the ego perspective. So much of the darkness that we talked about, where we say, well, dark is quite often reflected in the human aspect, and the light is quite often reflected in the spiritual aspect. There are the two aspects to consider. So what is your action? What is the action that is driving you? If you are stressed, then yeah, okay. So the stress is coming from the ego self, because it's the ego self that is originating the stress. But that stress is useful, because if you didn't have that stress, you wouldn't perform in the way that you might, or you wouldn't take an action. If I didn't if I didn't allow stress to partly control my life, which I accept is from my ego, because I'm concerned about what will people think. Take note, you in the house healing mentoring group that we've talked about this, fears. I'm concerned about what people will think. I'm concerned about how people will react to what I put out there, what I do in these lives, to the teaching that I do. I'm concerned by that stuff, but I know that's ego-based. I know that, thankfully, I know that the management are pushing me through that, but I'm a human being. I have to ignore that. I have to come to terms with those fears and accept that I'm likely to always have some degree of stress in my life. And actually, some degree of stress in my life, even if it originates from ego, enables me to do a lot of work for a lot of people. So is ego good or bad? If you want to take action, ego can assist. But I don't function, I hope you realize, I don't function from my ego. Okay, I try not to function with ego at the center of my life. Okay, is that better? Do feel free to put exclamation marks and whatever on the chat, folks. At least I know you're still with me in terms of being present. Okay. So, okay, cool. So this guy, Tom Turpin, also has some other interesting things. And this is specifically about gambling, because what I was saying in the video was that gambling is quite a heavy energy, it's quite a low energy, and of course it is, because there's a lot of people that get addicted to gambling. There's a lot of people, and gambling can cause such heartache and pain in individual lives. Cool. Oh, okay, excellent. Thanks, Tess. Great. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Good to know. So gambling, and when you sort of pop your toe into this sort of gambling environment, then you can feel it. I mean, I remember feeling that. I was fairly cautious of that when I was doing it. Thanks, Tony. Good to know. My ego is satisfied by your comment. Thank you. So we have to be cautious about this gambling, but this is what this guy says. So, he says, when dowsing lottery numbers, so he obviously does it a fair amount, I found it to be both tedious at times, but also quite blissful. I sense that if nothing else, there's some lessons to be learned here. Each time I try, that seems to be so. Like if every number is off by 1, for example, that's saying not this time. Well, again, I'm not sure I completely agree that that's what it's saying, but we'll come back to that in a sec. And then he says, if I win just enough to play again, then that might say, just don't give up just yet. But I sense it's my time to win something, that I'll be guided to choose numbers, blah, blah, blah. So, well, again, I sort of, I think in all of this we have, I mean, I don't think Tom is quite there in terms of what I would consider to be a perspective to make observations about one's life from, in terms of being on the wavelength that I would prefer to look at it all from. So we're just the point of observation within the life that goes by, and the management, the management just isn't judging. That's the key thing. And really, the management is not interested in the money. That's the important thing. The management doesn't care if we win £100,000 or we win £150. That doesn't matter. It means nothing. What is it? It's nothing. What they care about is what happens as a result. It's the emotional state, because that's what we're dealing with as human beings. We are emotional processors. So we change emotion from one state. In other words, we tend to look at darkness, as we said before, and we transform it into light. That's what we do, whether that be from fear to love on a specific scenario or throughout our lives. That's what we do. We transform things from one state of being to another, and hopefully on a spiritual path, we're transforming from the darker aspects to the lighter aspects. That's the point. Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. Yes. No, that's fine. There are lots of people. There are actually. That's a very good point, Robin. And actually, I have to say also that the people that I was kind of. I remember at the time I was signed up to a tipster. Yeah, a tipster. But this particular tipster, horsing tipster, was incredibly ethical. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I mean, I haven't lost my love of the idea of betting on horses, but there's such a hornet's nest of conflicts. But yeah, no, we're not judging. We're not judging the gambling industry. It's one of the industries that there are some very, very good people in, like everything, for goodness sake. Let's look at the spiritual world. I don't know why I'm doing this when I say spiritual world. The human spiritual world. There are some really good teachers out there, and there's some really less ones. Okay. Publisher, what, in gambling industry? Yeah, exactly. So it's all about learning and being allowed the chance to observe and learn from our experience. So what was I saying? So yeah, so I cited Tom's example there, Tom Turpin, but then he says why he would appreciate some discussion as to why gambling is considered so evil. You hinted on some things in the video, but his outlook is that it's a fun game of low risk for high reward, and gives hope if there's some deservability. Well, deservability, let's put that to one side. But if not, well, I haven't lost much at all. Where's the harm? I've seen people buy stocks with more of a gambling attitude and spirit than my attempts at the lottery, and yet stocks are considered investments and lottery playing is considered evil. Any thoughts? Yes, because the big lesson that I learned from my experience of gambling, and I realise that today has been a lot about me, but my experience of gambling, what it actually taught me at the end of the day, when I'd lost all that money on that one particular day and said, no, that's enough of that, go away, I was obviously thinking, why am I going through all this gap? What is going on here? But I could see, and what it showed me, and this is the learning, what it showed me was that actually at my time, at the time I was running my video production business, and I was treating that, the financial income from my business was simply a process of gambling, because I was gambling on the next job to come in to pay the bills, to do that. And there wasn't structure there. So again, this is all human-based ego form. And so it showed me that actually I had no business. What I was doing was just gambling. And I was putting my partner's welfare at risk as well by doing so, because I was running up massive debt. So something like that, when we talk about seeing life symbolically, that's what the symbol was, that's what the gambling was showing me. It was very obviously, in that case, it's showing me, well, look over here, look at where this symbol of what you're doing here is reflected over here in this aspect of your life. And this is what we'll find, as soon as you start to drill down and look at, what's the root cause of my fear, for example, what's the root cause of this particular darker aspect of self, then you'll see the influence of that aspect, maybe under a different name, under a different guise, under a lesser or a greater echo, but it will be echoing throughout your life. It's once you spot and identify these aspects, that you can really start to lever the change, because you start to work on them. And then you grow. That's your self-development, not necessarily a spiritual development, but it's a self-development, and therefore the spiritual development goes hand in hand. Sorry, it's such an interesting chat. I just want to quickly read that, if I may. Oh yeah, okay. Well, Sue's B, yeah, that's time. Time is a very specific thing. And there's also another thing with gambling. I think we've touched on this before. Won't go into this too much detail. But as the physical forms that are built out of the quantum realm of existence, and we experience, or we appear to experience, linear time, then actually the closer you get to the point of the of when the winner is going to be announced, shall we say. So let's think of it in terms of the lottery rather than horse racing. So if we say that is 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock on a Saturday night here in the UK, that's when the winners are going to be announced. That's the point of collapse, as they say. That's the point of the waveform collapse, where possibility has turned to probability and turns to actuality. So that's when the physical numbers are announced, when the information of the numbers are put into the dimension of our awareness. Okay, the timeline. If you're dowsing from this point, which is maybe 5 hours ahead of that point, then as you're getting closer, 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, blah. Obviously, you don't do it on the actual time. But if you do it 1 hour before the announcement, before that point of waveform collapse into physical form, then you're more likely to get the right result, because you are closer in terms of possibility and probability. That's the way I saw it. That's the way it kind of came to me. If I spoke to Ian now, Ian Jameson, the science guy that we talked to a couple of weeks ago, he might say, well, actually, it doesn't make any difference because it's in the quantum realm. And the quantum realm collapses in this state of now, and there is only now. But in our human perspective, we look at things going from all sorts of possibility to being narrowed down to probability, to being formed, to being actuality. That's a way of looking at the way that the quantum, the existence continues to manifest around us, as it were. Yeah, good. Well done. Tammy, you may be interested to know there's also a whole bunch of dowsers that also do exactly that. They help out people in Africa. They actually go out there. I think it's called Water Aid or something like that, or they go as part of Water Aid. It certainly happens in, Tom, good man. It certainly happens in the UK, and I suspect that the American Society of Dowsers also have similar thing. Tom Turpin, if you want to ask any questions back, then that's fine. I have touched on some of what you said, but not necessarily all of it, and you get the gist. It's good. It's great conversations, great comments, fantastic comments, actually. Thank you very much for those. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes. Let me just move on through some of this. Is there anything that you guys want me to recap on? Because we've covered actually some quite interesting, sorry about the fluctuations in light, some quite interesting aspects. Yeah, I mean, Tammy, look into it, because there may even be ways that as a dowser you can help. You can literally help from home. I don't know. I've not got involved in it, but Google it and have a look. It's a really great thing. Yeah, you know what? I will just touch on this as the last sort of aspect, and it does affect clients in terms of house healing clients, dark and light. It's not uncommon for house healers to encounter some dark energies, let's put it like that, when they go into a space, when they open up a house. And sometimes, you know, the way that these darker energies manifest, and usually these are thought forms. So these are low, heavy energies that have been created by individuals, by human beings that are constantly thinking the same thoughts, and they're very dark, heavy thoughts. So we've got thought forms. These can sometimes have enough energy that they actually become a life form. In other words, they have some kind of sentience. And then you've got another stage up where you've actually got the sort of, okay, I'll use the word demon energy. Right, okay, so there's three sort of levels of dark, heavy aspects there. Those of you that are on the house healing course, don't get freaked out by that. You're not going to suddenly start encountering demons. We'll talk about it in due course. It doesn't work like that. So, but some of the spaces have them. Now, these energies, these dark energies that are independent existences, and they're greater than both a life form and a thought form, they, I don't want to tempt fate, but fundamentally, they can be quite difficult to remove sometimes, but then they're not evil, mostly. Evil in terms of Hollywood movies or those sort of things is very difficult to personify, and in my years as a house healer, which I suppose I started in doing the actual work, hands-on with the framework that I teach in about 2013. So 7 years of doing the work, I haven't come across anything that I would call evil. And so therefore, if we think about satanic, let's use the word satanic. This is quite a dark way to end this live, but let's just deal with this. So we've got evil, we've got the satanic, the label of satanic energies. But you know, the label of satanic energies, actually, you could take that from there and just wedge it right over the human darkness. Because it is not created from a godlike being. The satanic energy that exists, let's use that word again. I don't like using it. I feel a bit like saying the name of the one that shouldn't be said. But that energy is not an equivalent of God, of love. Nothing like it. Nothing like it. All of that energy that is dark actually is part of love, bizarrely. It's not the tangible aspect of love. It's not what we interpret as love, but it is from God. That aspect of oneness in that state. That is not to say that God is Satan. Don't get me on that. Do not take it like that. There is not the duality in that aspect of existence. That's what I'm saying. Okay? So the dark, heavy energies are actually from us as human beings. And if you want to relate it to sort of biblical aspects or relate it through that way, then you might as well say, well, Lucifer is more about the human energy than it is, or ego energy than it is love, altruism. Okay? Yeah, well, there you go, Robin. You said it. I didn't. I didn't want to say it as easy as that. Nick, what are you saying there? Oh no. That's no. My relationship with my guide is that he shows up. He shows up. I don't call him in. I ask him to be present, and I ask him to speak if he needs to speak, and it's always done in alignment with divine will. So he will speak, and I allow that rhythm of him to come through, that energy of him to come through. I say rhythm because actually now, these days, I don't feel him come to presence. I just feel it. He's just, well, okay, there you go. And I just step back. Do you see what I mean? So none of this work, Nick, is about, we don't use the word summoning. We're not, we never use that. And I don't think you have actually. Did a call in. So what we don't do is in any way be presumptuous or expect the angelic or archangels or any of the spirit world to work with us. We invite them to, but actually that's what you're saying. So we are inviting them into the space, and they will be present if they need to, because it's all one anyway. But we are just exhibiting and practicing that aspect of respect and treating it as a sacred aspect. Hang on, what am I stepping around, Robin? What am I stepping around? Okay, I'm not. I just don't want to be leaving the live with the dark energies sitting present, and also the dark energies. Sometimes what you'll find, Robin, and you may well know this, may have found this already yourself. Sometimes people like their ego to be inflated by the fact that they go off banishing demons and other entities, and because they see themselves then as this amazing Ghostbuster. And that's not what it's about, because that is ego driven. When we were talking about ego earlier on, you know, what this is about, as you appreciate, is that it is that it is that you're doing it with love, and anybody that's doing the house healing work actually is doing it in alignment with divine will. We are simply being the presence, being the role, playing that role of observer, which I'm sure is exactly what you are getting at. Sorry, I just got to read it. Yeah, it's all a matter of balance. Yeah, exactly. Good. All good. Yep, all good. Yeah, yeah. So I'm only there's something else. I might include something else about the love aspect in another live, but not today. Okay, so any last questions? We're on a 3 minute, doesn't matter. We can go over a bit if you want to. It's okay tonight, not a problem with the caps. So, stuff, eh? Yeah. Any other questions? Is there something that I haven't covered that I said I was going to? We like our house too, Robin. We're amazingly lucky, and in a way, it was my mother's. It was my mother. My mother passed away and left us some money to be able to buy this house, so she made a big difference. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay, David. Yeah, I haven't heard of Eddie Burke's. No. Yeah, I mean, this is what we do. That's quite common. Yeah. Good. Well, I'm glad that's all been useful. Can you remember what that was, Jenny? Because I'm feeling like there's something I haven't said, or something hasn't been said. Do you know what, Tom? I think that's not necessarily them giving you guidance to say keep going, but actually you won't like this. Keep playing with the lottery and keep going at it, because there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be able to click in and get some success the way that you want to, especially with a light heart, which is really the way that you're approaching it with fun, and that's perfect. Don't get too wound up and heavy about it. But you know what I would say, because basically the sort of dowsing that I do is a spiritually orientated dowsing, I would say have a look at some other sorts of dowsing, Tom. Maybe you do. That wasn't clear from what I read, or I hadn't picked that up. It was after the pause. Jenny, I'll have to go back and have a little look and see what that was, I think, because I can't remember what I might have. I can't remember what I was going to say. So I'll go back and have a look, Jenny, and we'll cover it off next time, which will be. So there's not a live next week, folks. Don't forget. I'm looking at my wall planner and I can't even figure out what I'm looking at. Right, okay, so there's no live next week. Then the following is the 3rd of August, and that means I'm doing the meditation group. So if anybody wants to join in with that isn't signed up to that, pop across to my website and click on the PayPal thing. I have to charge for that one because I do need to. Also, interestingly enough, yeah, keep in touch, Tom, without, yeah, I like what you've got to offer. It's good stuff. Sorry, that sounded really pretentious. What I was going to say was, just briefly on the end here, I got the opportunity to put a join button on the YouTube channel. Do you guys think I should or not? That means that it's sort of saying, well, if you want to join the channel, then maybe, maybe for a little fee, maybe a $5 or something like that, then you can click join and blarge. Just let me know whether you think that's a good idea or whether you think that's a bit naff. I need a little bit more income to say that I can actually put more stuff on the channel. I need somebody to help me with editing because I can't get through all of the stuff. So that's one way that we might be able to churn through more stuff. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Okay, well, that's cool. Thank you, Tammy. So anyway, anybody's got a view on that? That would be very ego-centered of me, but it would be good to know in that sense. I mean, that in a light-hearted way. So don't forget then. So the next time we will be here on a Monday Moments Live will be the 10th. Yes, the 10th of August. So that's 3 weeks' time. Okay. So thank you very much indeed for all being there, and thank you for all your questions. That makes it work. And yeah, it's great to see you in 3 weeks if you want to join us again then. So that'd be lovely. So take care, folks. Take care, Sally. I'm going to hang on here and say goodbye to everybody that wants to say goodbye, because it's a bit weird when I just click the button and they all disappear. So Nick, good man. Take care. Bye, Terry. Thank you. Tom, bye-bye. Yeah, peace to all then. Thanks, Tess. Take care now. See you soon. Going now. Bye-bye.